There is a proven connection to clutter on the refrigerator and clutter in your home, and therefore clutter in your brain. Like, it's just stressful. They all go together. So if you go to a house that has, you can't even see what color the refrigerator is because there are so many things on it, even if they're beautiful photos of your kids and your pets and your friends or all your Christmas cards, if it stays like that year round, it feels cluttery.
Thanks for joining me on the Juggling Life Finding Balance podcast. I'm your host, Vivian Cummins, and here my guest and I talk all things balance, but through a Christ-centered lens. But before we jump into today's topic, I want to remind you to click that subscribe button wherever you are listening and watching, and while there, leave us a comment on how this episode has helped you. And be sure to visit my website, viviancummins.com, to grab your free Restoring Balance guide. Did you know that being disorganized can cause stress and mental anguish? I did some research on this recently because my home office is getting a little cluttered with my work stuff, my writing notes, books, and podcasting equipment. And I'm finding myself feeling really anxious when I enter the space. Sure enough, studies show that there is a definite connection between clutter and our emotions. And that's why I invited Carrie VomSteeg to join me today. Carrie is a decluttering and organizing expert and the owner of Home Savvy Organizing. She's here today to fill in those gaps as to why we feel stressed when things around us are messy and chaotic. And then give us some organizing tips on how we can bring balance back into our lives by simply decluttering. This is a good one, y'all. So let's dive in. Hey, good morning, Carrie. How are you?
Good morning, Vivian. I'm doing great.
I would love for you to just take a minute and tell our listeners a little something about yourself.
Well, my name is Carrie VomSteeg, and I have my own organizing business. It's called Home Savvy Organizing. And so I love everything that has to do with decluttering and organizing, sometimes more in other people's homes than in my own, but I still deal with my own. Live in Southern California. Grew up at a Christian camp all my life, and lived in Mexico for 12 years, married to a teacher. That's that's good enough, right? That's enough.
That's perfect. But I know this about you, and I think it's kind of a fun story that you said you grew up in a Christian camp. Can you tell us a little bit about that? Where was that?
Yeah, Northern California, it's called Mount Hermon, and those from Southern California probably know Hume Lake or Forest Home, but very similar, but up on the coast near Santa Cruz. And my dad was on staff for 41 years. Yeah, it was an ideal childhood that I had no idea when I was living it that it was unusual. But yeah, it was amazing. We lived on the camp, like minutes walk to the main conference center of everything that was happening. So, and they ran camps year round, but the summer was the most fun, of course. So people who would come to summer camp, my dad worked there, and we were just staff kids who got to run from dawn till dusk freely.
What an amazing childhood. So that is where I met you, was at Mount Hermon. 2 years ago, I took one of your classes there. It was my first time going, and I just absolutely fell in love with the area. So what a wonderful childhood you must have had.
Yes, it was pretty amazing.
I am excited to talk to you about today's topic of organizing because I love things to be neat and organized. And so being a professional organizer, well, I'm not always good at it, but being a professional organizer sounds like such a fun job to me. So I kind of would love to hear your background. Like, have you always enjoyed organizing, and what made you want to do this as a profession?
Yeah, so I told someone last week I knew I had a problem like in junior high because I needed everything to be just right in my room. I and if someone had said that to me, I don't know that I would have recognized it back then, but I knew that when I came home from school, if something was like if my sister was messing with me or my mom did something in the room, I'm like, oh, that's not where that goes. And I would need to move it back. Like not compulsively, but definitely notice. I notice all the little things. So not when I go to people's homes. Everyone's like, oh, I don't want you in my home. You're going to judge all my everything. And I'm like, no, it's more like if I'm at a hotel, I can walk in and be like, this room would flow so much better if the bed was over there.
Mm-hmm.
things like that. But also lining things up, like odd numbers are a big deal. It really looks good to the eye. More white space, not everything so cluttered and little teeny tiny things, like bigger decorations. So we do design as well. So I like to go in and help someone decorate their living room. But yeah, all my life I've liked my closet to be a certain way, my drawers a certain way. That doesn't mean I don't have messes. I definitely have cupboards and drawers in my home that need help, kind of like the plumber that has a broken toilet at his own house. But my bent is definitely like to be color coded, alphabetized, left to right, large to small, all that. It does happy things for my brain.
I get it. So, I is that being a perfectionist or is it something different?
Well, I'm kind of recovering from that,
Me too.
but
Me
but
too.
I still have it in me. Now it comes in handy when I'm working on someone else's house because they want it to look perfect. But it's hard for me to let things go in my own home and be like, it's good enough. Because to me, those words don't sound good. They sound like you're settling for something that's not good. So that's hard for me when I'm cleaning, when I'm packing, when someone else is going to come stay at our house, when company's coming over. It's like, okay, no one's going to notice if this or that is not in the right spot or perfectly dusted. But yeah, that's hard for me to let those things go because it's part of who I am. It just, I don't know. I don't enjoy cleaning, but the organizing part, I could do that all day.
I like that too. And looking back into my childhood and stuff, I was kind of the same way. I like to have things a certain way, but so much of that stemmed from my dad's kind of a perfectionist, and I think I got some of that from him. But looking back, I really enjoyed having my toys lined up a certain way. And I remember my bookshelf. You remember the little what are those golden books? I think that's what they're
Oh yeah.
called.
Uh-huh.
With
And they
gold.
all look so pretty on the
Yes,
spine.
they do, and I remember I had a bookshelf and they were all lined up, and so it's funny that you mentioned that. It's just something maybe that's, ingrained in our personality, the
Yep.
organizing part.
Yep.
I don't like cleaning either, but I sure do love a clean house.
Oh
You
yeah,
know?
100%.
Oh my gosh, I love a clean house. So what made you decide to do this professionally? You just gave in to you're like, "Okay, this is my skill set. I'm going for it."
Well, I thought about it for a long time, and a friend and I, we kind of had the same brain, and she started out as my business partner. We talked about it many times, but it was more of a joke. Like, wouldn't it be fun if we started an organizing business? But it just seemed like a heavy lift and kind of unrealistic. And she had a full-time job at the time, and I had a full-time job at the time. And so it's not like, hey, you want to both quit our jobs and start something that's not profitable at the beginning. So
Right.
it just didn't happen. And then in 2020, we I looked at her and I was like, well, I got laid off. I was working at Habitat for Humanity. I loved it. It was great. But all of a sudden I was without a job and she was going part-time. And I was like, hey, it's a terrible time to start a business, but what do you think? And we kind of laughed about it. And then we're like, well, I mean, why not? Who cares if it doesn't like get big or super successful? We both love it and it would be fun. So we started it like as a hobby, kind of unofficially, and just were getting the word out with our friends and family. And I would love to say it totally took off and now we fly all over the country, but that's not the case. It has been a slow roll, but good with balancing life and family and stuff. But yeah, so we started it, and since then, so that's been 3 years, almost four. Since then, she has faded away a little bit. She just likes to help me on the design projects, but not like organizing people's garages that are hot and dusty and gross. So I mostly do everything on my own now. So I manage the two social media accounts and all the communication with the clients and bookings and all that kind of stuff. But it's still kind of small. I would love for it to grow a little bit because I love it and it's fun and people love it, but just finding the right clientele. I got my first out of state organizing job this past summer, and that
Oh,
was fun.
congratulations.
Thank you. She flew me to Seattle, which was like, yes, please, because my sister lives up there. So I'll be there. Yeah, so that was great. Big 4-day project.
Well, that leads me to my next question. I'm kind of curious. What are the services that you provide? Like, tell me what you. Yeah.
Yeah, so our like subtitle under where it says home savvy organizing, it says declutter, organize, design. So we do all three of those things. The main thing that people always want is organizing, but we have to go back and say, okay, you can't organize until you declutter because then you're just organizing too much junk. And then the third component of design is people have hired me to decorate their Christmas trees and organize all their ornaments, which sure,
Really? I
I can do
love
that.
it.
Yeah, we've been hired to fill a house with furniture because somebody moved here from another city and kept that house and rented it out fully furnished, so they moved here with nothing, so they sent us shopping, and we got to buy, like, $10,000 couch, and I
Oh my God.
yeah,
That
it was
sounds
kinda
like the
crazy.
perfect
It was
job.
super fun. So we're organizing as we're going, but we're basically working with a blank palette, so
Mm,
that was really fun because it was like she goes, "So there's no budget, just I want it to be pretty and comfortable." I'm like,
yeah.
"We can do that."
So, my husband's retired Air Force, but one of his last duty assignments was we got orders to Okinawa, Japan. And so we had to be in country in less than 30 days. So our house went on the market and I mean we had to sell it fast because we had to get going. And so we hired a couple of ladies to come in and stage the house a little bit so that we could, because there were like at the time there were like two or three other houses in that on that block that were for sale, and so we were competing and we're like, y'all, we gotta sell because we gotta go. And so we hired these ladies. They came in, and what they did was we gave them a small budget, very, very small. Get a couple pretties, bring them in, do whatever. And they rearranged some of my own things, which was so cool. And then they bought a few things. We had a very small budget. And then there was this huge reveal. So we left for the day and then we came back,
Fun.
and when we opened the door, I mean, they had these candles going. It smelled beautiful. And it was like a whole new house, but so much of it was my own stuff. And I'm like, I never would have thought in a million years to use that, trinket to display it that way. And do you know that our house sold like within a couple of hours of it being on the market? And I know it had to do with how they organized and displayed everything. It was so
Yeah,
cool.
and then you didn't wanna move, right?
Oh my gosh, I didn't. I took pictures and I tried to recreate that when we moved to Okinawa. We lived in kind of like I don't know, it was kind of like a duplexy thing on base, and I tried to recreate some of that stuff, and it wasn't the same, but it gave me some ideas.
Yeah, no, they say, and this isn't an official number, but you hear different ones around online and from different stagers and such, that you can get up to 30% more for your house if you stage it. So we actually work with, because walking into a blank home, everyone thinks, oh, it's so clean and empty and beautiful, and I can picture my stuff there. Most people can't picture their stuff in there. They can't figure out where would I put this and that, and that's fine. But having it staged, you walk into a beautiful, what looks like a designer home, and you're like, oh, I love this, and you're really falling in love with a lot of the decorations. But that's great. It's hard to just look at the bones of a house and have that vision. So we work with real estate agents as well. So I'll do a staging walkthrough for a real estate agent and go room by room, super detailed list of what needs to come in, go out, shift, come off the walls, all the pet stuff away, all the personal photos down, and declutter a lot. And then I will write up a detailed report for the real estate agent and give it to them, and they pay me for that. And then they give it to the client. And if the client wants to hire us separately to do the list, we can do that, or they can do the list. And then now they have a perfectly beautiful checklist of how to get them from here to the day it's time for photos and listing.
Oh, wow. And you're right. And then they're like, I don't want to move. I love my house.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh, how fun. That is so fun. Um, so I want to shift a little bit. I want to tell you. So I got to thinking about you because recently, so I work from home now. My job is at the house, and my home office is being used as my podcast room slash my writing room slash my government work from home room, and I mean, you can't tell now. Now it looks like, from what you're saying, I'm sure it looks nice, but in front of me is a hot mess. I have papers, I have notes that, because I'm trying to work on a book. I got all these things. And I've noticed that when I come in here now, about the last couple of months, when I come in here, I start feeling like I'm having an anxiety attack. And there's a closet that I've shoved some stuff in. And every now and again, I go in there, I need that. I'm just like, oh, I'm about to pass out. And so I started thinking, is there some kind of relation between, clutter and anxiety and feeling stressed? And I found an article from the American Psychological Association that said, yeah, clutter stresses you out. So tell me a little bit more about that.
Yes. First of all, it does look beautiful from what I'm
Well,
seeing,
thank
but
you.
I'm
Thank
the
you.
exact same way. You don't know what's behind my camera right now. There's always something. Everyone thinks organizers' homes are like perfect and not one thing is out of place. I'm like, that's so not fair. I mean, yes, there are quite a few drawers and cupboards that are very organized, but we all have stuff and we're all working on it. Just because I do this as a living doesn't mean we have it perfectly figured out. But clutter can actually trigger the release of the stress hormone cortisol. And so that's not something that you want in your body a lot of because it just continues to be like, and it interrupts your sleep and all the things. Um, so clutter, it signals that your work is never done. Like when you're looking at all those papers, you're like, those are all pending, right? If it was done, it would either be in a file, it would be scanned and shredded, it would be in a box, it would be somewhere else besides right in front of me as my to-do list. So it's kind of like looking at all of your ingredients for a recipe, but then leaving them on the counter for days. We all know you haven't made the thing yet. Like you need to put them all together and stir, right? So looking at all those things is just a constant reminder. I haven't done it. It's not done. I still need to do it. Why aren't I doing it? Then I feel guilty. So it just, yeah, it's real. It's not imagined. It can bring on extra stress and anxiety. In fact, I don't know if it was the American Psychology Today, psychology.com, somewhere I read that said there is a proven connection to clutter on the refrigerator and clutter in your home and therefore clutter in your brain. Like it's just stressful. They all go together. So if you go to a house that you can't even see what color the refrigerator is because there are so many things on it, even if they're beautiful photos of your kids and your pets and your friends or all your Christmas cards, if it stays like that year round, it feels cluttery and stressful. So if you do an experiment and take every single thing off your fridge and see what that feels like and looks like for a little while. Some people will be like, it looks sad and plain and whatever. And others are like, oh, that looks so like clean and like, at least when I walk into the kitchen, it doesn't feel like more things like competing for my attention.
Yeah, and it's funny that you said that because they are undone lists, and I'm a checklist person, and so with all of these sticky notes that are here saying, "Hey," and all these ideas, every time I get an idea for something to put in the book or whatever, I put it on a sticky because I don't have time to get to it right now, and then I have 10,000 stickies, which
Yeah,
is creating so much chaos in my brain, and so I gotta get it together.
I know that's
But
hard.
it's a thing, and here on this podcast we talk a lot about being balanced, and right now I feel very out of balance in that area of my life because of this clutter.
Hmm.
um okay, I want to talk a little bit because I watch the television show Hoarders. I do. It stresses me out to watch it. I don't know why I watch it.
I know I can't.
But sometimes I will watch it, and I'm just wondering, what's the difference between like somebody who's hoarding stuff and somebody that just, they're collecting some clutter and they got, some messes laying around. What's the difference?
So the main difference between being cluttery or having clutter and being a hoarder is that the way to think of it is clutter can be semi-temporary. Hoarding, being a hoarder can be semi-permanent. I don't want to say it's always those things, but if you have 100 sticky notes and you take all those notes and put them in your book or put them in your calendar or put them in your computer in some way and throw the sticky notes away, your clutter is gone. If you're a hoarder and you take one thing out of your house and say, "Ooh, I cleared off my desk today," or "I cleared something out of the kitchen today," but the whole rest of your house is piled to the ceiling, you're still a hoarder. So I have two friends who had parents that are officially diagnosed clinically as hoarders. One was, I buy too much stuff. I can't stop buying. Half of my closet, all the things still have tags on them and I'm not even wearing them. And I just can't stop shopping. and my house is filling up. Like I have bags and boxes and bins everywhere of stuff that I just keep buying. The other friend's parent was a hoarder with trash, and that level of like literal garbage. So you take it out of your can, you bag it up, tie it in a knot, and put it in the corner. So that is a whole nother level that needs professional help with the mental health side of it. We don't do that as organizers. I would help someone who asked to hire us if they have a problem with shopping, because I would be happy to go through clean clothes that have tags on them still and help you get rid of them. But trash or like, animal feces in the corner like that, no, we don't do that. That needs professional help. But everyone says that when we come into their house, they're like, oh my gosh, you're going to think I'm a hoarder. I know we throw that word around, but really there's a huge difference between I'm too busy, I have too much stuff, I have too much money, I keep buying things, I can't stop shopping, I'm filling a void, all those things that tend to push us towards clutter, versus you can't walk through my house and I look like I could qualify for the show. I haven't actually been into a house like that yet.
Yeah. My husband and I have a joke between the two of us. So he says I'm an anti hoarder because if I don't use something, I throw it away or get rid of it or whatever. And then I get complainy about a month or two later because I need it. And then I call him a hoarder. And I probably shouldn't do that since he's not like really one, but because he keeps little things like sometimes when he empties out his pockets, there's weird stuff in there, like weird, like, I don't know, like screws or nuts or whatever, and he'll put them in this drawer, and he calls it his drawer of potentials. He's like, they have potential, and he's like you wait. And so sure enough, there'll be times when I'll need him to fix something or whatever, and he'll be like, aha, and he'll go to his drawer of potentials and he'll pull some weird thing out, and then he'll fix it, and he'll be like, see. And I'm like, you're right.
Sometimes that's helpful.
Yeah.
However,
However,
that's
comma.
not the norm. Yeah. However, love the idea, and when that works out, it does feel good. Like, oh, I'm so glad I don't have to go buy that again.
Yeah.
But if it's a nut or a screw or a bolt, those are very, very, very inexpensive, and most people live within 10 miles of a Home
Yeah.
Depot or a Lowe's.
Yeah.
So we have a rule in organizing that's called, well, more of the decluttering world. It's called the 20/20 rule. And there are a lot of other names for this, the 10/10/10, the 10/20/30, whatever. But I like the 20/20. If I can find it within 20 minutes for less than $20, I can let this one go. Because if I keep doing that, I might need it just in case. That's my grandma's talk from the 80s and 70s, and she grew up in the Depression, so I understand why she felt that way. But when we're cleaning out her house when she's, getting older and moving, and we're finding like Ziplocs full of twist ties, it, those were free at the produce section. So we don't need to keep those. So that whole, like, I might need it someday. If it's super, super expensive or really valuable as far as like a memento or a family heirloom, I get it. Like, you can save that. But if we're talking about something that could be replaced for less than $20 in less than 20 minutes, it's probably okay to let it go.
Ooh, I'm gonna use that. It's funny
I
that you
know,
said
it's
that
not
about
fun.
your grandma. My grandma used to wash her plastic cups and tin foil. Isn't that crazy?
Oh,
Yep,
yeah.
yep,
And
yep.
Ziploc bags.
Yeah,
Because
I
why
don't
would we ever want to? Yeah.
I don't know. But she
Yeah.
did. She did.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for that. I'm gonna share that with my husband. I'm gonna make him listen to that part.
Yeah. The other way, I always say this, and I give a shout out to Kathy Lip every time. A lot of people know her from the writing world, but her big thing is clutter free. And so she's a speaker and an author, fantastic at what she does. And her book is one of my favorites. And I said this on the last podcast that I was talking about organizing and clutter and mental health. She has three ways of looking at each item if you're deciding to get rid of it. Well, the first one is, do you love it? So that's a pretty easy question. And everyone's like, well, of course I do. Yes, I love it. Everyone says yes to that one. Do you use it? And I don't mean like you have to use a picture frame. If it has a picture in it that you love, then you are using it. That's fine. But I'm talking about things that are sitting in your closet, like clothes that you're never wearing. So if you're not using it, but you claim that you love it, do you really love it if you're never ever going to wear it? And then the third one is what gets me every time. It is the fastest way to get rid of the item. And I've moved quite a few times in the past 30 years and twice internationally. So we've had to make some very hard decisions, moving to Japan. of what we're taking and what we're bringing back. And the third question after, do you love it? Do you use it? Is if it got destroyed, flood, fire, theft, whatever, would you go out and buy again? Would you replace it? And that's usually the one people are like, no, I mean, I do like it, but I wouldn't spend the money on it again. And then that's an easy way to be like, okay, donate.
Yeah. Where does sentimental value come into that logic?
So that, do you love it? Do you use it? Would you replace it? That is a little bit harder because if you're talking about your grandma's china that's irreplaceable, or something your grandma actually made you, or a letter with her handwriting, that's different. We're just talking about stuff. So I say if I find a letter from my grandma that she wrote me that said how much she loved me or she was proud of me or something, I'm keeping that. It's flat, it's thin, it's light. That's not going to hurt anybody in the long run. And she probably hasn't written me 5,000 of them. So yes, those I would say 100% keep. If you're talking about her china in the garage that you don't love and you're not using, then that, and even though it's not replaceable, that is a tougher question that I can offend a lot of people by saying the thing that nobody wants to hear. And I heard this once from someone else and I was like, that is so harsh, but it's also really true. Keeping your grandma's china in a box in the garage is not going to bring her back to life. And the first time I heard that, I'm like, dang, okay, harsh. And I'm like, but it's kind of true. Like if you're keeping it because you feel guilty that it was hers and it's one of the only things from her, use it. Bring it out of the garage. But if you think it's ugly and you're never going to use it and you're
Yeah.
keeping it in there because your mom wants you to have it, that's a different level of, yeah, it gets complicated.
That does because in my family and some of my close circles where we've given gifts to each other and stuff, I got to the point a few years ago that I said, "Give me something like if you want to give me something, get me something I can eat." Or something
Right.
because
Consumables. That's
yes,
the key. Yep.
because my taste has changed over the years and we've downsized, and like you said, we've lived in Germany and Japan and stuff, and so I've lived everywhere, and each time we move I downsize. And
Yep.
when you give me gifts, though, it's the thought that counts, but sometimes it's not my style, so they are staying in old boxes or totes, and then I feel bad, right? So, yeah, give me something I can eat, or like bath, something, bubble bath or something that I
Yep.
can actually use and discard or something like that. But
Exactly.
trinkets, yeah, no
Yeah.
more trinkets. No more
Candles and
trinkets.
lotion.
I
If it's a
love candles.
consumable, I'm in. Yeah.
Me too. Me too. Love that stuff.
Yeah.
What are what are the most common organizational mistakes people make in their homes?
Ooh.
The
Let's
one
see.
thing that you walk in there and you're like, oh my gosh.
Well, there are a lot of mistakes as far as clutter is concerned, but organizationally, they don't have baskets, bins, dividers. And everyone's like, I don't need that. I don't need to spend money on that. I'll just organize my cupboard or my drawer or whatever the way it is. But everybody knows in a drawer, things slide and shift. And if you've ever opened a drawer full of silverware that doesn't have a silverware tray, you're like, what's going on here? So take that to the next level. And then it starts to feel like, ooh, I kind of want dividers in every drawer because it keeps everything in their own space. Like a junk drawer that doesn't have an organizer is way more of a mess. You can keep almost all the same items, but if they each have their own cubbies, now I actually know where to find that specialty pen that is long and skinny because it's not going to be in the little divider that's a little tiny square. It's going to be over here on the long side. So that makes it a lot easier. I even did that in one of my drawers in my dresser because the drawers are kind of deep. And if you just, I want for my workout clothes, if you just throw everything in, we're talking pants, sports bras, shirts, all of it, it can be a mess in 2 days. But I have two dividers. They're spring loaded. So I just have two. Some are plastic, some are bamboo. So that means I have three sections, right? So this is all shirts, this is all sports bras, this is all pants, and they're all rolled. I know that sounds neurotic, but it is so nice when I open the drawer.
Oh,
I
I
know what the
bet.
weather is
Oh,
outside, and I know that I'm grabbing leggings and not shorts, or I'm grabbing a tank top instead of a long sleeve. It's just like boom, 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 quick. And so then every time I do laundry, I just roll it really quick and stick it back in. Now, sometimes if I'm in a hurry, just throw it in. But I would say dividers have changed my life more than any other thing that I've bought or used. There are some cute things that you can put here that make your stuff look cuter, but for functionality, I would highly recommend getting things that hold your items and separate them so when you're going to look for it, you know exactly where it is. Now, in a pantry, I don't put boxes inside of boxes. I don't love that. There's a TV show that does that on Netflix. It's very popular. I think they do great work, but sometimes I look at their stuff in the pantry. I'm like, you just put 4 boxes of pasta into a plastic bin. I don't think that's necessary. That's just a waste of plastic and money. So, to each his own, but in drawers like a dresser and in drawers like silverware, um, stuff in the kitchen, I think it's super helpful to have good dividers. And you don't have to spend a ton of money. We shop at Home Goods, TJ Maxx, Marshalls, and then Amazon if I can't find it locally.
I love that. The other thing too that you just hit on, the time management. I mean, my goodness, the time that you save once you get things organized and tidy and stuff. I mean, you just go in there and grab what you need instead of like what I'm doing right now is going through and trying to find those t-shirts instead of the long sleeve ones and stuff. So investing up front and getting organized and decluttering will save us time in the long run.
And everyone says, oh, I can't afford all that because it could be hundreds and hundreds of dollars to really get your house to that level. But pick the drawer that's driving you the most crazy and go buy one divider for $15 today and get that one thing done.
That was going to be my next question to you. So, what tips do you have for that person that's overwhelmed by the clutter? What can they do to just start today? You kind of already mentioned one thing.
Uh, Besides calling me, I'm just
Besides
kidding.
calling you, I
I
mean,
can help.
hello.
Yeah. No, I start small. That's my number one tip. Start small because it can be overwhelming. Just like you and I trying to write a book, right? There's part of me that's like, I don't have time to write a book. And then my friend who's very gently pushy but is great at motivating, she's like, you don't have time to write a whole book today. So write a chapter. And I was like, oh, good point. But then on some days I'm like, I don't have time to write a chapter. So she's like, just write a page. And then I get really feisty and I'm like, I don't even have time to write a page because it's Christmas or it's Valentine's or it's Groundhog Day or I have all these things on my list. Just write a paragraph every day. Just write 100 words, something that's moving you in that direction. So we always tell people, don't look at your whole house. You cannot decorate your whole house at one time and declutter it and organize and do all the things. You start with one drawer, one small cupboard, one part of your closet, one something, and just see success in that area. And then that will motivate you to do more. But when you try to go in and go, I'm going to do the whole kitchen today, in about 20 minutes, I can guarantee you're going to be completely overwhelmed and frustrated and don't know where to start or end or continue. And then it affects your whole family.
Yes, I get it. My one thing that I did, and I'm one of those people. I love organization and stuff, but I've got so many things going on in life that I've had to pick and choose. And my one thing that I did was yesterday I bought me one of those scanner things where you can like scan
Oh,
things in there so that there's papers everywhere here, Carrie. So I'm going to start scanning those in, and like you said, maybe a couple things a day. Start getting those things and then shred. So that was my one thing that I've done this week. That over the Christmas holiday, if I have some downtime, I'm going to start that. So
yeah. And I also tell people to calendar it. If it doesn't go on my calendar, it's probably not going to happen. And I keep thinking, man, my days have just been filling up and I don't have the time to do X, Y, and Z. It's because it wasn't on my calendar. When I make it a priority and put it on there, then I'm like, oh, today it says I have to do this. So it happens.
that's great. So, Carrie, what other things do you have going on? You mentioned a book, and tell us a little bit more what you got going on.
So, as a writer, I would love to finish the book that I'm writing. It's like an unconventional devotional that I'm working on. That's a little more raw and honest and real than most devotionals I've read. Someday I'd like to write a book about organizing. I'm not really sure what that would look like and where. I don't know. God is a God of order. Like organizing Jesus sounds a little sacrilegious. So I'm not sure. Jesus in my mind, like
Yes,
my
yes.
my world. I'm not going to organize him. I'm sure he's fine.
He's got it under, I think he's got
Yeah,
it
I
under
think he's
control.
good. I'd love to organize his carpenter supplies, tools. No, but that would be a long term, yeah. But writing doesn't pay. I think we all know that. So unless you're like the big wigs that were writing the big books, organizing does pay, and so I'm trying to focus on that right now, but writing is always in the back of my mind. My son is a videographer, and so he helped me record a few courses in my kitchen, and so I'm going to be coming out with those in 2025. Not exactly sure when, but yeah, so selling those as like individual, you can just buy the drawer course, the cupboard course, the refrigerator course, or as a bundle like the kitchen course. So that's the next goal. We'll see. And then people who live like in Michigan or Georgia can buy the course instead of flying me out there. So they can learn all my tips and techniques. And I feature certain products that I really like and that I use in my own home. So then they can see and buy them there. And I never have to see their house, because most people are nervous about me coming to their house. I'm like, don't be nervous. I can guarantee I've probably seen worse. So don't worry. But yeah, so that's kind of what I'm working on, trying to get courses going, trying to get my business, rolling a little more in the Southern California area, and then hopefully writing that book.
Oh, it'll happen. It'll happen. And
Yeah.
I cannot wait to see your courses come out, because I'm going to be one of your first clients on that, because I need the help, but I kind of need somebody to tell me how to do it. So,
Oh, I get it. I know. It's a lot. And people, yeah.
Yeah.
You can't be good at everything, Vivian. So
I know. We try.
we can all help each other, right? Whatever our
That's
expertise
right.
is.
That's right. This has been so great talking and reconnecting with you today. But tell us again how our audience can reach you. Do you have a website? How do they get your services?
Yes. So on Instagram is the main thing that I'm working on right now. A lot of reels, so you can see what we do there. It's called Home Savvy Organizing, SAVVY. And on Facebook, it's the same. I haven't updated that quite as much, but I have a bigger audience on Instagram. And then our website is hmsavvy.com, or you can just type in Home Savvy Organizing to Google and it'll find us. So those are the main ways, and I interact a lot with people. So anytime someone leaves a comment, I always comment back. I'm not one of those big fancy, like, oh, I just throw all this stuff out there and never interact. I'm very, very active with all my friends and family and everybody out there. So, and I've just gotten into the place where people are finding me and starting to hire me, and I don't know them, which is like, oh, the internet
That's
works.
cool. Yes.
Trying to get
Yes.
past your friends and family circle
Uh-huh.
takes a minute. And
It
it's like,
does.
this lady's like, I found you online. I'm like, you did? Oh, it worked.
I
Yeah. But
love
if you
that.
reach out, I'm not a big corporation with somebody who's going to make you press one if you want this. It's me. Like, hi, this is it.
I love it. And I know everyone is just going to love working with you. I've enjoyed getting to know you better. And so, those of you who are listening and watching, please reach out to Carrie for her services. And you're just going to love her. She's such a hoot and so funny. So, and you're so good at what you do. So, thank you so much for joining me today. It was so great reconnecting.
Thank you, Vivian. You're fantastic. It was super fun.
Thank you for joining me for another episode of the Juggling Life Finding Balance podcast. If you enjoyed today's show, please leave us a 5-star review, and don't forget to visit me on my website, viviancummins.com, where you can get your free Restoring Balance study guide and more resources that will help you move that needle from busy to balanced. Until next time, be blessed and stay balanced.